I want to welcome you to this session of Women on the Front Lines of Climate Change, Reports from the Field and Strategies for Action. My name is Musimbi Kanyoro. I'm the board chair of the Women's Learning Partnership, and I will be facilitating this session. We have it streamlined, so I want to welcome also our participants who are not in the room, and to really thank you, the participants who are here and in the room together with us. It's very nice to be together in person once again, after many, many months of not doing this. So I want to tell you a little bit about what Women's Learning Partnership is, and then I'm going to tell you what we intend to do with my marvelous team here. And we have one of our participants of the team leaders online, representative of also that some of our audience are also online. So the Women's Learning Partnership is a global partnership of 20 autonomous organizations. These organizations work in their own countries, and they have networks. They work with a large number of networks, some up to 600 networks. So they are very well networked in the countries in which they work. And together, we believe that we have a shared vision of a just, peaceful, and equitable society, and that we as women leaders can make a big difference in our own societies, in our own communities, in our own families. So for this, the Women's Learning Partnership is a learning organization. And we do our learning by enabling capacity building, leadership training, advocacy skills and methods to be learned at various levels so that women will be empowered, or their power will be increased for them to be able to interpret and contextualize issues that they are dealing with and be able to find solutions that are suitable for the place from where they are working. We trust our partners because our partners live in the communities in which they work. And so day in, day out, they are able to experience the realities of those communities and give shape to them. We believe that research is useful when you want to do advocacy. So part of our work includes doing extensive research together with the partners on the issue that is important. And we are able to share this research through publications that can be used across the world, with each of the people adjusting what needs to be adjusted for their own context. And for that, we've been able to actually, our books are used on gender equality issues in more than 50 countries and have had the possibility of being translated in over 30 languages throughout the whole world, including my own language in Kiswahili. So very proud about that, to have some of this material translated. So advocacy, as I have said to you, is important for us. And today, in this current time, advocacy on climate justice is important for us, because we know that if we don't act and take part in the leadership of climate justice, we will not get there. And so I'm privileged to introduce to you 3 of my colleagues from our partner organizations. And our objective today, as I introduce them, is to demonstrate the interconnectedness of gender equality and climate justice by drawing from the examples of the work that they do or what they experience in the countries that they live. I want to introduce all of them at the same time, but I will call each one of them to come and speak. And then at the end of their 3 presentations, we will have opportunity for you to ask questions. So listen with interest, because we would like you to ask them questions so they can expand what they will have, the little that they will have been able to share with you. So on my far left is Nezha Belkachla, who is the president of Marrakesh office of the l'Association Démocratique des Femmes de Maroc. And Nezha is the president of the association, and she is also one of the representative partners from Morocco. And she's a member of the global team of our trainers, because we have a global team of trainers, and we draw our trainers from our partners. And Nezha is one of the trainers. She has facilitated workshops in the field of education, active democratization of citizenship, human rights, peace education, gender equality, women's leadership, and political participation, and both at national and international levels. She works or has worked with women in Morocco for collective land issues. And today she will be presenting to us a very interesting case, a case study of empowerment of women through land rights, through getting education to be land rights. And then I want to introduce I want to introduce our leader who is not here. I just purposely wanted to put her in the middle. And her name is Julie Cissé. She's from Senegal, and she's the director of Groupe Initiative pour le Progrès Social in West Africa, and she's responsible for West Africa. Julie is the executive director of the Groupe, and she is also a partner, a trainer partner. She is a founding member of the Women and Land Alliance of Senegal and a member of the continental team of Women to Kilimanjaro initiative, advocating for equal rights of African women to land ownership. And she's been doing this since 2016. She's also a member and a leader of multiple local, national, and international organizations. And she's going to be demonstrating to us through using Senegal as a case study of sustainable agriculture and women's leadership in that area. And then I want to introduce to you Andrea Romani, who is a senior program coordinator of CEPIA, and she will tell us what CEPIA is in Portuguese. Andrea is a biologist and a senior program coordinator. And she's also our partner representative on the international level from Brazil. And she has worked on environmental issues and focused on sustainable development, mainly as it relates to waste management, human rights, gender issues, and also worked to empower pickers of recyclable material to develop capacity building projects with grassroots women's organizations from communities across Rio de Janeiro. She's going to be talking to us on gender-sensitive responsiveness to climate change. And I'm going to begin with Andrea, and then we will hear Nezha, and then we will hear the presentation of Julie. So, welcome, Andrea.
Thank you so much, Musimbi. Good afternoon to all. It's a pleasure to be here in this session that addresses and brings to the arena and to debate of the environmental crisis, gender. We understand that this is a crucial topic that should be also embraced and engaged in the discussion about environmental, climate crisis, so it's a pleasure to be here and to join this session. I would like to start by reinforcing the idea that climate crisis is a global issue. And by being a global issue, it cannot be rooted in ideas of national sovereignty. It's important that we bring transnational commitments, that we hear diverse voices and knowledges from different perspectives. And also it's very important that we consider local knowledge, local leadership, local voice, but also link it to the global one, and that the global one could also nourish local knowledges and voice. And this idea, gender equality, it's central if you really want to hear and consider all the voice and its diversity. You can please move. Thank you. Considering the idea that gender is crucial and that we are here celebrating Stockholm+50, that we are 50 years of the UN Conference of Human Environment, I decided to go through the 26 declaration principles of Stockholm Declaration of 1972. And then I realized that the word women does not appear any time among the 26 principles. What it means that gender was not recognized as a key element to this debate by that time. We're talking about 15 years ago. And it's not a matter only of a word, because word has a political power, and words can bring situations visible or invisible, and this is a reality that it's important to bring to visibility. And also I would like to raise that throughout today, many of the panels that I had the chance to attend, almost none of them mention the word women or gender. Today, taking Agenda 2030 as a reference, since it's like a guiding instrument for many of us in terms of sustainable development, we see that improvement has been made. The achievement of full human potential and of sustainable development is not possible if one half of humanity continues to be denied its full human rights and opportunities. This is what's stated in Agenda 2030 from 2015, but it's still a very central debate, even here in the forum. And we have Goal 5, that's gender and women's empowerment and girls' empowerment. It's not a goal in itself, but it's the central goal in order to achieve the other sustainable development goals, including Goal 13, that deals with climate action. The fact that gender equality is today central in sustainable development goals has a reason, and it's the women's struggling all around the world to denounce discrimination and also to demand for equal rights. Yeah, please, you can. And why gender equality is central to climate justice? Like Musimbi mentioned that I was bringing, like why it's important to be gender sensitive in addressing this issue. First of all, we women, we are half of the population of the world, so we cannot be left aside. We are not only half of the population, but we are protagonists in the struggle for human rights, for climate justice. So it's very important that we be part of this debate. And also, it's already proven, based in so many researches, is that humankind does not experience environmental crisis at the same way. Women has less access to resources than men to prevent, to respond, to mitigate, to be more resilient to the situation. So it's very important that we consider that. And not only men and women are different, but it's very important that we remember that we women are not a homogeneous category where we are different. Considering race, age, ethnicity, refugee situation, and so many other variables that make us women in our diversity experience differently the environmental crisis. So it's very important that we have an intersectional approach to it. And the other one that I want to just read the sentence because it's connected to the call for the Stockholm50 meeting. Gender equality in all dimensions of life is key to fully achieve a sustainable and healthy planet for the prosperity of all. So I think it's very important that we have this in mind. But okay, we need to be part and we need to be engaged, but how we want to be engaged? Are we the saviors? Are we the victims in this whole debate? This is also important that we reflect about that. We are the saviors, we are the saviors. We are the caretakers, the householders, the protectors of the most vulnerable. We give birth, so they say that we are more linked and connected to nature and also less involved with destruction. And also, we women, we can and we do play a critical role in response to climate change. Knowledge and leadership in sustainable resource management and in sustainable practice at household and community level. And my friends will be able to share some of those very concrete examples. But we are also the victims. Thank you. We are more fragile and vulnerable to effects of climate change. We are at higher risk of physical strain. And also we are in a higher risk of suffer violence. For instance, with the droughts or the floods, we need to go further searching for food or for water, and it turns us more vulnerable. But it's important to remember that sexual violence is part of women's and girls' life trajectory. What it happens with the environmental crisis and climate change, it exacerbates this vulnerability and exposition and risks of sexual violence. Environmental and women's rights degradation. Now I want to bring a concrete example of Brazil and how environmental degradation also increases risks and turns us more vulnerable. I cannot not mention Brazil since I'm from Brazil. What we have been testimonying, and I'm sure some of you have been following, it's a dismantling of all legal legislation, environmental legislation in Brazil. Brazil is very well known for very strong environmental legislation, but what we have been seeing lately, it's dismantling of environmental legislation and our equipment, backlashes and rights that were achieved, and with prioritizing a politics of economic growth instead of preservation, of capital instead of people. And with the high impacts on traditional communities, including quilombolas and indigenous ones, with a lot of attacks to environmental defenders. And bringing a very concrete example of a report that was done by Yanomami Indigenous Association, along with an environmental association, is that the Yanomami territory that it's on the state of Roraima, mining are inviting indigenous communities, polluting the rivers, and turning more for deforestation. An increase of 46% of illegal activity was reported. And besides all the destruction of nature, women are also the victims of a lot of cases of rape and abuse, especially girls. So what I want to also bring here for our reflection is that this is a clear example that women are being victims both in her body and also in her life resource. But what are the strategies that we can adopt to respond to this situation, to other situations? This is one suggestion. Increase women's participation in key decision-making spaces. In Brazil, we have a very strong civil society organization, women's movement, but we are very underrepresented in the formal political arena. We are only 15% of the seats in parliament. And if you take the intersectional approach, we see that black women, it's only 2.3. And indigenous women, for the first time in 2010, was elected as a federal deputy. So we still have a long way to go. Some responses were adopted to try to reduce this gap. One that I bring to share with you, it's an initiative by CEPIA, the NGO that I'm representing, along with a law school, Getúlio Vargas, that we play as amicus curiae on the Federal Supreme Court, and we won, assuring that female candidates should have at least 30% of the electoral funds, because it's not enough to have only the quota of 30%. We need to have the conditions to have women candidates to be elected. And another more recent initiative that's still taking place, since you'll be having federal election this year in October, it's the launch of Bancada do Cocar, an indigenous caucus. And what the indigenous say is that they want to aldear the politics. They want to occupy and increase their presence in politics so as to confront so many backlashes in terms of environmental policies that impact them directly. Yes, next one. Another strategy that we must adopt and that we have been adopting, it's also like strengthen leadership activities among grassroots women, being those women from the forests, from the rural areas, or even from the cities. And one example that I want to bring here, it's the role played by the catadores. The catadores and catadoras are the paper pickers, or the informal workers who work with waste management. In Brazil, they represent around 800,000 people all around the country. And 7% of them are women. Those women, they are environmental agents, they are caretakers, they are head of their families, but they are not on key decision-making positions in their co-ops. Many of them are organized on co-ops. Among the initiatives, another example that I want to bring, it's a training initiative that CEPIA held along with Women's Learning Partnership, bringing to these women elements and information and awareness about leadership, gender power relation, the roles in the family, self-esteem, so that they could have like a stronger voice in the whole like spaces that they occupy. And this had like a very important impact in terms of they becoming more vocal, not only in their own associations in the house, but also in the national initiatives and events. So coming back to the question that I raised, are we women, or do we women want to be engaged as savers or as victims in this whole environmental and climate crisis debate? I would say that being half of the population, we are also part of the solution. We are not neither savers or only victims. When we think about that, it's important to remember that our saviors means that it increases the pressure on us in terms of additional responsibilities, and at the same time also reinforce our role as caretakers. And this is something that we need to question also. And us being seen only as vulnerable or as victims, it's also reinforced cultural and social values and the structures of gender power socially constructed that need to be considered in any environmental and climate change program. So I would finish saying that if you really want to address on a serious way and really want to look for sustainable changes in terms of environmental crisis, it's the other one, sorry. Can you just go back to the slide? Okay. Thank you. It's just this last sentence that I think is very important, that if you really want to address it in a very serious and sustainable way, it's very important that the debate should recognize the need to create conditions and opportunities to assure more women in decision-making positions in all levels, and that we question gender roles, and that we do adopt holistic solutions, recognizing the knowledge also of those that are on the ground. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Thank you very much. Let's now listen to Nezha. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Musimbi, for your wonderful presentation. And thank you, Andrea, for setting the framework for my presentation. I'm going to actually start with a quote from a great lady, Mary Robinson, a former president of Ireland, and a strong advocate for climate justice. She says that climate change is a man-made problem, but what that requires a feminist solution. And that leads me to think that, or to share with you, that women have played, a critical role in climate change mitigation and in resilience, and are powerful leaders in climate change. And but, they are tied by social gender roles and don't have access to land tenure and don't have any role in decision making. And so that's actually restricts that power. That's why I'm here to advocate and make visible the experience of powerful women in Morocco, rural women in Morocco, and that were illiterate, but they did a wonderful job, an amazing one, in struggling for their rights to land tenure. Can you move to the next? Okay. So the picture shows women of collective lands, and those women were actually accompanied and coached by Association Démocratique des Femmes du Maroc, which Association Démocratique des Femmes du Maroc is an association that was founded in 1985 and whose mission is the advocacy for the reform of discriminatory laws, norms, and practices against women. And of course, it is one of the first partners of WLP, for more than, they have been partners for more than 22 years now. And this battle was to actually allow women to have access to land tenure and stand on the way of their access to decision-making in their community. We cannot talk about what we call Sulaliyat or women of collective lands if I don't share with you these, a few pieces of information on the lands. The collective lands represent a real land reservoir. It is the highest concentration of available land in Morocco. They represent 42% of Morocco's land. And they are actually important reserves of natural and mineral resources, and they represent a considerable political, economic, and social issue because they cover nearly 12 million hectares in surface, or near the third of the country surface area, with a considerable agro-silvo-pastoral value. It covers like 4,631 ethnic collectivities with 2.5 million beneficiaries and a total population estimated to nearly 10 million people. You can see with me that there are only 2.5 million beneficiaries, and the 7.5 are not beneficiaries, and among which we have women, we have kids that do not have access to school, do not have access to food security, to safety sometimes, because they are threatened by their husbands, and they're beaten, and they're sometimes, even threatened by death or by to be killed. And these lands are managed by ethnic tribes and by a decree. Can you go to the other slide, please? and by a decree, I'm not going to go through all the slides because of the constraint of time, but I'm going to say that these lands are governed by the tribal customary laws and by a decree that dates back to the 1990, and that was actually enacted by the French Protectorate. Most of these women, or if not all, were excluded from the rights to land use and profits, and this led to the impoverishment of these women. And I can show you some pictures on the next slide. You see with me here, can you notice that women and kids live in slums, and in front of them there are buildings and farms of the male community. Can you go on, please? So, what did ADFM do? ADFM is Association Démocratique des Femmes du Maroc. So, when the first two women came and knocked at the door of the association seeking help and support, and they were actually at the beginning advocating for their individual concerns and problems, ADFM gathered those women and accompanied them through different stages of advocacy, through research, through capacity building, communicating with the government bodies and the Ministry of Interior, networking nationally and internationally, because some of these women, when empowered, gave presentations at international forums. Those illiterate women that were, at the beginning, that didn't know, their rights, that were seeking to empower themselves, but they were wonderful women who wanted to learn, who wanted to actually participate in meetings and in workshops. And the result of this struggle was the enactment of 3 circulars that allotted men and women the same rights. And then, of course, the struggle continued, because these circulars, though they gave the rights of women to women to access land and represent the community in the representative bodies, but they were accepted only by some provinces in Morocco, by some cities, by some authorities, because they said these circulars do not have the power of a law. And actually the advocacy continued, and they conducted, like a 3-month-long campaign caravan, which targeted 660 women and led 16 communication and advocacy workshops. And these women had played the multiplier effect on other women. And this, of course, couldn't be ignored by policymakers. And, can you go on, please? And then so the law was promulgated in 2019. It proclaims equal rights for men and women in access to land and in representing their communities in the representative bodies. This was, of course, considered a great victory from the part of the women of the collective lands, and by also ADFM and WLP International. And you can see with me here, I share with you some of the actions or some of the projects that were led by women when they had access to their lands. They set or they started sustainable agricultural projects. Not only this, but because they were empowered, in laws and in rights and in gender equality, they could nurture those values. They were able to nurture those values in their communities. Okay, it is the struggle hasn't finished yet, because there came a decree after this that actually excluded women by some of the criteria that were not available within women, because women did not have those criteria to get the land. I mean, and then again, you know, they gathered together, these wonderful women gathered together and drove a national campaign for about 2,000 signatures in support of revising the decree of application of the law. Can you go? Last one, okay? I move pictures quickly to see the empowerment, you know, workshops, but can you go to the end, to the conclusion? Thank you. Yes, the women of collective lands were empowered legally. They could now actually lead their advocacy campaign with a little help from our NGO. Just the conclusion, you know. Can you go on, please? Can you jump to the conclusion? I mean, you can see just pictures in press conferences. These women are women of collective lands. You see interviews from the media with them. My message is that, I mean, without women's empowerment and without gender equality, we cannot dream of a sustainable development. And because my friend mentioned how central is SDG 5, and in the middle of all the SDGs, and in connection with SDG 13, which is climate action. So it's up to us now to create change, and it's up to us to do that through, empowering women, and economically and politically. And all the global community is responsible for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Nezha. If you have to take anything from these two presentations, even before I introduce the next one, take that something is happening. We can be positive about it. Today in the intergenerational forum, the young people said, stop saying many words, do things. And I hope we are helping to show that things are really happening. And I'm delighted to introduce the presentation of Julie. And in order not to worry about technology working, she has recorded her presentation, but she's on remotely listening and will be present for the questions. So let's play the presentation for Julie, please. And thank you, Julie, for sending it in advance.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Je suis heureuse de m'adresser à vous à partir de mon pays, le Sénégal. Je m'appelle Julie Cissé. Je suis directrice exécutive de GIPS, qui est un réseau de femmes agricultrices en zone périurbaine, en zone rurale. Et GIPS est membre depuis 2014 du partenariat avec WLP. C'est avec honneur que je voudrais partager quelques expériences que GIPS WLP a entamées au Sénégal, est en train de poursuivre et parler de quelques acquis considérables qui ont été acquis, mais parler des défis et des perspectives qui nous attendent par rapport à cette thématique mondiale qui nous réunit à Stockholm. Je voudrais commencer, comme je l'ai dit à l'entame de mes propos, par remercier sincèrement le partenariat WLP, grâce à qui nous avons pu faire des choses considérables, inimaginables dans certains villages du Sénégal. Donc, qui dit GIPS dit la promotion du leadership féminin en les questions de développement. Et depuis 2016, nous sommes très actifs dans un mouvement continental appelé Initiative Kilimanjaro pour l'accès des femmes à la terre. Dès les premiers résultats positifs, nous avons pensé, une fois l'assiette foncière acquise, installer des périmètres qu'on appelait périmètres Beydundé en langue locale, c'est-à-dire produire et se nourrir, tout en préservant l'environnement, tout en développant des stratégies fines de résilience face au changement climatique. Et sur un objectif de 30 périmètres, nous sommes au 6e périmètre. Les 5 sont fonctionnels et c'est à partir des expériences de ces 5 périmètres qu'on va vous présenter cette petite documentation pour partager les défis. Donc, la thématique mondiale, une planète saine pour la prospérité de toutes et de tous, notre responsabilité, notre chance, a été très tôt comprise par notre réseau. Et nous sommes en mesure de démontrer que les femmes ont été toujours en première ligne dans la lutte contre les changements climatiques. Slide. Je voudrais partager quelques problèmes et défis environnementaux. Cette année au Sénégal, nous vivons durement les conséquences négatives de l'hivernage passé. Si, en tant qu'agricultrice, j'achète le kilo de haricots à 400 francs, à 1500 francs, 2000 francs au mois de juin, cela veut dire qu'il se pose un problème de soudure, en fait, parce que les récoltes ont été désastreuses. Et les femmes agricultrices sont chargées de gérer tout ce qui est sécurité, souveraineté alimentaire. Donc, les principaux problèmes climatiques et leurs impacts au niveau des femmes agricultrices, il y a une désertification agraire, une érosion éolienne et hydrique qui lessive et appauvrissent nos sols cultivables. Il y a une salinisation de l'eau et un affaissement de la nappe phréatique. Il y a la rareté de la ressource eau agricole et sa cherté. Nous notons depuis quelques années des inondations, de nombreuses pertes de surface agricole, des déplacements de familles, ce qui accentue la situation de vulnérabilité des femmes et des enfants. Face à ces problèmes, ces défis, nous n'avons pas baissé les bras. Nous avons usé de stratégies féminines fines et nous avons mis en place des actions urgentes grâce à l'appui de WLP à des partenaires comme le Microfem mondial, comme la Fondation Enrichment. Je voudrais citer quelques stratégies que nous avons employées et réussies. Par rapport au plaidoyer pour l'accès des femmes à la terre, au-delà du Sénégal, nous avons appuyé des sœurs au niveau de la région ouest africaine à acquérir des surfaces cultivables. Parce que le plaidoyer pour l'accès des femmes à la terre nous a donné un succès éclatant quand le 25 février 2021, nous avons eu un dialogue de haut niveau avec les instances de l'Union africaine qui ont décidé d'intégrer les 15 demandes de la charte de Kilimanjaro dans les référentiels des politiques africaines. Ça a été un succès éclatant. Mais nous avons renforcé les capacités des femmes agricultrices sur des techniques innovantes pour maîtriser. Dans les périmètres, c'est le système goutte à goutte qui est installé pour atténuer la corvée d'eau. Mais il y a de nombreuses activités de défense et de restauration des sols. Il y a la confection des cordons pierreux pour ralentir la vitesse de l'eau et lui permettre de s'infiltrer et permettre à la nappe de se recharger. Mais nous mettons à côté des ouvrages creusés de retenue d'eau pour les activités féminines liées au maraîchage, au suivi des activités de reboisement et à l'eau pour le breuvage du secteur. Nous avons mis en place dans les 6 zones agroécologiques des pépinières de production de plantes. Et l'objectif pour la pépinière 2022 de notre réseau est de 30 000. Nous avons commencé avec nos propres moyens et nous lançons un appel vibrant à tout partenaire qui puisse aider à matérialiser, à atteindre cet objectif de 30 000 plants. Ces 30 000 plants sont redéployés auprès des organisations féminines membres de GIPSoir ou non membres de GIPSoir qui sont actives à ces activités de reboisement, parce qu'une solution que nous maîtrisons à notre niveau et qui est simple, c'est planter, planter, encore planter et éviter la déforestation. Je voudrais en image partager avec vous quelques actions réussies. Vous voyez ces braves femmes dans ce travail très minutieux de confection de cordons pierreux. Vous voyez cet ouvrage de retenue d'eau qui nous permet de garder l'eau de pluie après 2 mois après l'hivernage. Vous voyez le retour du tapis herbacé parce que les cordons pierreux ralentissent la vitesse de l'eau et lui permettent de s'infiltrer. Et quand l'eau s'infiltre, la nappe phréatique se recharge. Par rapport toujours aux actions réussies, chaque année, nous mettons en place une pépinière nationale que nous divisons dans les 6 zones agroécologiques. Là, c'est la pépinière de l'année dernière, 15 000 plants produits et redistribués aux membres de nos groupes de base et aux organisations sœurs qui s'activent dans ces questions de reboisement et de protection de l'environnement. Nous voyons sur une autre image des sessions de renforcement en capacité. Des sessions de renforcement de capacité en technique de mise en place de pépinières et de production de plantes. Les femmes sous l'arbre prennent connaissance des techniques pour maximiser la chance de réussite de la production de plantes. Cette production de plantes est encadrée par un technicien junior, senior, et au final, ce groupement de base remet ses plans à GIPSoir, mais en contrepartie, reçoit un fonds de roulement qui lui permet de renforcer sa caisse de groupement de base. Vous voyez, au sein des périmètres acquis grâce au plaidoyer pour l'accès des femmes à la terre, nous procédons quotidiennement à la garnison de ces périmètres. Il faut renforcer le pouvoir économique de ces braves femmes qui croient qu'elles sont les garantes, le dernier rempart pour faire face aux effets négatifs du changement climatique et préserver notre environnement. Nous aurions bien voulu être avec vous à Stockholm, mais à partir du Sénégal, recevez ces messages de ces femmes, de ces jeunes qui sont avec GIPSoir sur le terrain et qui posent leurs problèmes en termes de messages, mais ces messages contribuent à réfléchir aux solutions durables pour permettre, comme le thème international l'indique, à toutes et à tous une vie saine, prospère et durable. C'est toujours les campagnes de messages, c'est des leaders des groupements de base de GIPS. Et chacune, dans son village, dans son terroir, a entre ses mains cette unité verte de production dans ces périmètres appelés Beidoundé pour garantir la sécurité alimentaire de nos familles en zone rurale, mais participer à cette lutte pour mettre sur la table des stratégies féminines, fines, simples, de résilience face au changement climatique, mais des stratégies de protection de l'environnement avec des pratiques durables dans l'agriculture. C'est toujours les campagnes de messaging, et ces campagnes sont faites au niveau local, au niveau national, au niveau régional, continental et international. La stratégie est de trouver des occasions, comme les grandes rencontres internationales, comme la conférence de Stockholm, les COP, de transmettre ces messages via les réseaux sociaux pour interpeller les dirigeants de ce monde qu'il y a urgence et que les solutions pérennes, durables, se trouveront au niveau de la base. Et nous sommes persuadés qu'il faut agir local, synchroniser, trouver des solutions locales pour des solutions durables. 50 ans après la conférence de Stockholm, GIPS porte le plaidoyer pour des pratiques durables dans l'agriculture. Une agriculture saine, sans utilisation de pesticides. Une agriculture avec des pratiques durables qui préservent nos sols, qui n'affectent pas notre nappe phréatique, mais qui sécurisent la consommation des familles. Une agriculture durable qui est pour nous la seule garante pour une transition vers l'agroécologie. Et là, nous avons eu l'honneur, le 8 mars 2022, d'expliquer ces actions à Monsieur le ministre de l'Environnement et Madame la ministre de la Femme, qui nous avaient conviés au village du 8 mars, où nous avons reconstitué en miniature un périmètre Baïdoundé et montré les nombreuses actions, les stratégies fines de résilience contre les changements climatiques qui sont déployées par GIPS depuis 2016. Les activités terrain, vous voyez une session de renforcement de capacité et une distribution des foyers améliorés. Les foyers améliorés, appelés communément chez nous fourneaux Djamba, c'est des fourneaux qui permettent à ce nombre de femmes de faire la cuisine, mais qui utilisent rationnellement le bois de chauffe. Mais tel que conçu, c'est des fourneaux qui émettent moins de gaz à effet de serre. Ça, c'est extrêmement important et beaucoup d'organisations de la société civile sillonnent tout le pays pour les sensibilisations et permettre aux femmes, en attendant d'aller vers l'énergie durable qu'est le solaire, d'utiliser ces foyers améliorés pour émettre moins de gaz à effet de serre. Comme action urgente, c'est la mise en place de la pépinière 2022. Nous avons commencé, mais nous avons placé la barre très haute. 30 000 plants à produire d'ici le début du mois d'août, les redistribuer aux groupes de base et aux organisations sœurs comme GIPS et de procéder à des actions de reboisement. Des reboisements suivis, encadrés avec une motivation de ces femmes, de ces braves femmes qui, au final, avec des indicateurs très positifs, montreront qu'il y a eu des pourcentages de réussite de X% pour la campagne de reboisement. Je voudrais terminer par cette image où nous avons la présence de nos sœurs de WLP à Stockholm et nous aurions bien voulu amener ce support pour que chacune, à travers ce support, émette un message fort à l'endroit de la communauté internationale pour des actions durables. Il faut une urgence climatique, mais il faut une reconnaissance et une valorisation du leadership féminin dans ces questions. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Thank you very much, Julie, and the translator for making us be able to listen and hear Julie at the same time.
Julie. Come on.
Thank you very much. So, audience, we've listened to 3 presentations that really answer to the question, are women victims or are they saviors? And basically what we are saying, as you can hear, we are both sometimes suffer from the effects and impacts of climate change, but we are also able to provide solutions that are sustainable solutions. And from the 3 examples, I hope that we can notice that they are not small, they are at scale. They are at scale either country-wise or applying to policies and laws that impact even more than the place where the project is. And that leadership is coming from within, because when leadership comes from that place, then we are trying to say you can actually count on sustainability not only of the project, but also sustainability of the leadership, because it's people who make things happen. And so with that, I want to ask to invite some questions. And for warm-up, we're going to have some conversation. For warm-up, I'm asking the panelists just in 1 or 2 words, not more, what would you like to see happen more in your country for the work that you're doing? I'm beginning with you, Andrea, and Nezha, and I'm coming to you, to Julie, as to prepare you to ask your questions. And not a speech, just words. What would you like to see more of?
Can I have 2?
Yes, 2 words. You can have 2 words.
One is that our constitution be really respected, because the 5th article says that men and women are equal in right and responsibility, and unfortunately this is not being used and respected on the past times, and I think this is a starting point that's very important. And the other side, I think it's very important that we question norms and practices that perpetuate violence against women, that perpetuate that women are like less than men, that girls are less than boys. And I don't think this, unfortunately, is something related only to Brazil. I think it's a deeper and more complex situation, but I think this is very important that we continue to question.
Okay, it makes me think you have a good constitution. Nezha, and again, brief, because we want to have the audience ask.
I mean, I won't be long. I want discriminatory laws. What is it? There is an echo, I guess.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I want discriminatory laws reformed. Discriminatory laws, of course, against women. I want the change of the patriarchal mindsets, and I want the empowerment of women economically and politically, so that they can make their voices heard in the private, in the private and the public spheres. Thank you.
Okay. Can Julie hear us? Is she getting the translation for her to answer?
Oui, je vous entends.
Okay.
Moi, je voudrais
Yes,
demander.
I would like to ask 2 things.
Continue, Julie.
We must reinforce leadership and participation of political participation of femmes. There must be economic empowerment for women. And in Senegal and ECOWAS, there must be respect of commitments made. In July, we will be countries going to New York to talk about various things. And we would like the international community to allow the women to have access to financing for climate, to have access to these numerous possibilities because they are at the coal face. They have to find sustainable solutions. And I join Nezha and Madame Robinson regarding the feminine solution that is necessary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Now it's your turn. What are your questions to our panelists? Yes, I see a question here, and I see a question there.
Hello.
Yes.
I just want to thank you for the great insights and for the good presentation. But my question is there anything besides just because it's like your home country, like for Brazil and Morocco, that you chose this topic, or is there some other reason to why you just chose these two countries?
Perhaps the answer to that is that we wanted to bring to this audience practical things, and things happen in a place. And if we came and just gave a theoretical issue about these issues, you wouldn't have been able to see the context. And we could have chosen any 3 countries, and these were very representative and possible countries for it. But that's a good question. We wanted to contextualize and show reality.
Thank you. I'm taking it back what Musimbi mentioned about the practical aspect of our work, especially in a very big subject on women's equality. I would like to presentation. I congratulate all the presenters, and I want to ask Andrea about the Commodores. So my question is that, we have been talking a lot about the equality between men and women, especially with regard to working together to mitigating climate change. So my question is the Commodores is only women who, as a country, I'm from Indonesia with, waste management is a major issue in heavily populated countries like Indonesia. So I would like to ask you about Commodores. How does it work at the practical level? Why it's only women who work in this? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other? I could take 2 or 3 questions. Julie is right there too. You can see her, and then we can have each one of them answer. Any other questions?
Musimbi, we have a question from the live stream.
Sure.
A question for Nezha about what the role of traditional Islam is in the management of the collective lands, if there is one.
All right. Is there any question for Julie? So I'll give them all a chance.
Yes, the question for Julie is what type of agriculture do the women do that she works with, the women she works with? What is the type of agriculture that they do?
Okay, wonderful. So please provide brief answers so that we can see if we have 10 minutes, so we can see if we can get in another set of questions. Thank you.
Well, I was waiting for the mic, but it's here.
Yes.
Adding to what Musimbi answered to your question, I think we have many fantastic examples of how women can add and can respond to all the climate changes and challenges that we face. It's just that here we don't have the time and to share all the initiatives, but I think it's very important that we give visibility to all the initiatives because they are not only one, they are multiple because we are like facing multiple situations, multiple contests, and the environmental crisis, it's very complex. So I wouldn't say that's not because our examples are better than others, but it's important to share it. Regarding to your question, I think that's very much related to what I share in my presentation in terms of the women being, the situation of catadoras and catadores, the paper pickers in Brazil. It's a very complex situation because it's directly related to economical crisis and low-income situations and lack of alternatives. So paper pickers and recyclable waste management for them became an income. And what we see is that for women, it became an easier way to have an alternative source of income, and especially because they care more, what I would say is that they care more about the environmental, and they have, I think, a bigger awareness. I'm talking only about the catadores y catadoras in terms of the role that they play as agents of transformation. So I think they engage more in this initiative, but it's not no other reason for that that I would know.
Thank you. Address the Islamic.
Okay, I understand that your question, why did we choose this topic, or to introduce this topic in this conference? I
didn't know that.
Yeah, is that your question?
Is that the question?
You said, why did we choose this topic, to talk about this topic?
No, the countries.
There's a question
These
directly
countries?
for you.
Yeah, why we are sharing the experience of these countries.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So,
No. There's a
in our
question for you
experience-
there was a particular question for you. Do you want to repeat it? Yes, repeat it for her.
Sure. Feel free to respond to that question as well, Nezha, but the question directly for you is, what is the role of traditional Islam in the management of collective lands?
Yes, that is the question you need to be answering.
Yeah, I think that's the same question. So I think, why did we choose to share the experiences of these countries? I would actually build on what Andrea said. I mean, it's not that they are the best experiences in the world, but that's, I mean, in each conference or in each international meeting, we, all NGOs share their experiences, because it has a viral, effects, and it can actually inspire other countries to do the same. Because, I mean, the issues that, women suffer from, I think they are similar in many countries, not only in Brazil or in Morocco. But I think that maybe the approach is different, but all the NGOs try to approach the problematic of gender equality, and when we share our experiences, we can have feedback from people on how to ameliorate, for example, our experience, or we can actually influence, perhaps, or maybe inspire other countries, and also to make, the experience of these women visible at the international level. So I hope I answered your question. And then for the role of Islam, in collective lands. Sorry? The role of Islam in collective lands. I think that's the collective lands are not governed by an Islamic law. Because, this is Islam, for example. Women in Islam can inherit. Maybe they don't have the same share as men, and this is another struggle in Morocco. But at least, women inherit the lands of their parents and sisters and brothers, etc. So the collective lands are ruled by customary laws, and customary laws that are based on a hierarchical, relationship, that dominates, in the country, and that represents, inequality and control over women. Okay. And so the men themselves, according to the tribal norms, think that they have the right to lands, and they have to exclude women from the rights. Okay. And I just want to share with you one small thing.
I don't want us to miss hearing from her because of time.
So I can stop here.
Yes.
Maybe we can discuss outside. I'm ready.
Okay. Did you hear your question, Julie?
Merci. Oui, je vais rapidement répondre à la
I'd like to answer your question.
Yes.
And I'm reinforcing what I said regarding the region. we have 95% Muslims and 5% Christian. But the management of land is done by national law. But we all know that the chiefs have power for land management. But I can advocate, if we formulate our message so that women could have some more say. In Senegal, we have two types of institution, two types of agriculture. We have conventional agriculture. There is a plea then that the state in Senegal, who has committed themselves towards African Union with the declaration in West Africa, which demands 10% of the national budget should go towards agriculture, that we have tools and be able to see that from this 10%, what really goes to agriculture. But in my exchanges with you, I talked about sustainable agriculture, because we are looking to the future and future generations. And they will ask, what have you done with the land? And so we are concentrating on sustainable agriculture. And more, we want organizations, practical and ecological organization of land. We have said during the Glasgow COP that we are busy transiting to renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our time is up and right on the dot. So I want to thank our panelists, each one of you. Please join me in thanking our panelists, Andrea, Nezha, and Julie, for this time. And I want to thank you for participating. I want to thank you, those who are present with us in, and those who have streamlined in and attending remotely. Yes, Julie, we can see. We can see. Thank you so much for showing that as well. And I want to invite you that if you have time and would like to continue the conversation informally, we're around and we'd love to continue that conversation. The panelists are here. Yeah. And if we need to call Julie, we could call her on WhatsApp. Is that correct? Yep. If you need to talk to Julie, we can connect on WhatsApp so that nobody will be left out if you have something else to say. So on behalf of Women's Learning Partnership and on behalf of everyone, thank you so much for participating in this session.
Thank you. Thank you.